Hey guys, welcome back. This next episode is a personal favorite of mine. Right now, political tensions are high, and I think we've been more divided than ever. I think this will help break it down. We get someone from a local government to just kind of tell us how things are going, and I hope it gives us a little hope. But first, let's check out today's lucky winner.
Congratulations! You're today's lucky winner. You're dead, but you've won a year back on Earth to do whatever you want. And I'll be your Grim Reaper chaperone.
Rita, why are you at my desk?
I'm talking to a lucky winner.
They aren't dead. I was going to tell them about the show.
The show where I helped my dead human friend Dawn prove that she was murdered?
Yeah.
The paranormal stoner comedy.
Yes, the scripted fiction show that's got fart jokes, sapphic romance, vampires, and acid trips.
Where would they find today's lucky winner?
On their favorite podcatcher app. Now get the out of my desk.
Hey guys, thanks for coming back to Behind the Behind. I am Sydney, your host, and I am joined today by a city council member, a PhD holder in 18th century literature, and I'm not sure whether I should call you doctor or if you prefer that title, or...
You can just call me Deb.
Deb.
Call me Deb.
Awesome. Deb, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm on Denton City Council, at large, Place 5. That means I serve the entire city of Denton. Place 5 is not a district. It's just a place, almost like a chair. On city council it's a 7-member council. 4 of those places on council represent the 4 districts of Denton, geographical districts. The 5th place is my position, which is an at-large position. I serve citywide. There's a second at-large position citywide, and that's place 6. And then place 7, even though we don't really call it place 7, is the mayor place on council, which is also an at-large position that serves citywide. So to serve on place 5, you need to live in either districts 1 or 2. And to serve for place 6, you need to live in either districts 3 or 4.
Okay.
But everybody gets to vote for all at-large positions.
Great.
And including the mayor, all 3 of them. And then people in those individual 4 districts vote for those 4 district positions. So this is my just won re-election to my 2nd term on council. They're 2-year terms. There is, fortunately, there are term limits, which is a very good thing.
Yes.
To prevent people from serving forever. So if I decide to run again after this, then that would be my 3rd and last term in this position. So it's kind of a maximum of 6 years on council in each position.
Awesome. I have to say, I'm very proud to have read about you and know that you are pursuing this, because it is important to have good representation in our local government. And it is just awesome to be able to converse with somebody like that. So again, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
But back to your 18th century literature, that is so cool. That is such a niche that I personally, I'm not very, I got terrible grades in English. My essays were all over the place, but I love stories. And I think 18th century literature has some of my favorite stories, and one of them being Gulliver's Travels. And that story has been adapted and is still used in pop culture today. But what is your favorite part about 18th century literature?
Oh gosh. Well, now that you mentioned Gulliver's Travels, I've got that in my mind. So I'll talk about that, because it's a great example of what drew me to 18th century literature. And that is the quirkiness of it, the weirdness of it. Particularly, and I'm interested in all genres. I teach and write about all genres, poetry, nonfiction prose, drama, but also the novel and Gulliver's Travels. Some people say it's not a novel. I understand that it could be called prose fiction travel narrative. I call it a novel. But this is at the time where the novel was actually novel. That's why they called them novel, because they were new.
Yeah.
And so certain, conventions that we take for granted in novels being ultimately, long prose fiction is what a novel is. But certain conventions that we take for granted were not yet, had not yet been cemented. It was really an experimental form. Every novel was experimental, and Gulliver's Travels is a great example of that. Probably my favorite example and my favorite novel from the period is Lawrence Stern's Tristram Shandy, which begins with the protagonist in utero. He's inside his mother's womb. Yeah, and he actually, and he's the narrator as well as the protagonist, Tristram. And he doesn't get born until the 4th chapter. And he narrates his conception, which involves his father winds the clock every night. And anyway, it's just very comical. There are things in that novel that blow students' minds when I teach it, because they think of these things as things that kind of avant-garde things that you would not expect to see in an early modern novel, that you'd expect to see in, experimental writer of the 20th century, later 20th century. For instance, there's there's a character in the novel called the Widow Wadman, and it talks about how beautiful the Widow Wadman is. And it says, well, because everybody has their own individual conception of beauty, I'm not going to describe her. Instead, I'm going to give you a blank page here and you can draw her.
What?
Yeah, and there's a blank page. There's also, when somebody dies in the novel, and there's a black page. So I'm not even going to say to represent death. There's a black page. And so there's a lot of experimentation that has to do with kind of the limitations, the limits of words, to convey ideas, to tell stories. And so, yeah, a lot of experimentation with, like I said, black pages, blank pages, pictures. And, in Gulliver's Travels, there's another thing I love about it is, if you look at an original edition of Gulliver's Travels, and you can just Google, do a Google image search for a facsimile title page, Gulliver's Travels, you'll see that the author is listed not as Jonathan Swift, but as Lemuel Gulliver. And people, for the most part, understood that Jonathan Swift was the author, but they were all kind of in on the joke. And the reality effect was really played up. Of course, it's so preposterous what so many of the things that happened to him, like going to, a land where people are this big, and then Brobdingnag, the land of the giants. And anyway, I'll just say this and then I'll shut up about this, but my one book that I've written, maybe hopefully someday I'll write another, probably after I finish with being involved in city politics. But my book, which is it's called The Little Everyman: Stature and Masculinity in 18th Century Literature. And it's about the fascination in this period, in literature of the period, with teeny tiny men, typically paired up with these, I like to use the word ginormous, which is not really a word, but ginormous women. And I mean, most of it is comic. So it's very funny, but Gulliver's Travels, when he's in the land of the giants, he finds himself typically in the hands of women, enormous women. He spends time with men, but he turns into a woman's plaything. He's this macho English explorer who is this woman's plaything. And so Swift really has a good time with that. I write about a memoir of a dwarf that was very popular at the time, and genre of poetry about little men. Anyway, that's enough.
I love it. No, I don't even feel bad. This whole
weird and funny things in this era, and I love teaching it to students.
That's so cool. And there's like a lost appreciation because it's so old, and people are just so focused on the future but they don't realize that the future was shaped because of stories and stuff like this. And I mean, you can find adaptations of Gulliver's Travels, like in The Simpsons, where they grew a colony from a tooth, and it was little people that ended up making like sculptures of Lisa and worshiping them. And there's a little piece there. I mean, they redid the movie with Jack Black in it. Not gonna say whether it was good or bad, but it was there, and it was something. There's so many adaptations of that kind of a story, but it's something really cool to geek out over. Honestly, it's I could sit there and read it until it was done, until my wife got mad at me that I was just reading all day. But what got you so interested that you went the whole shebang? You went PhD into it.
Oh, well, it was because I like being in school.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You know, now when I went to college, I knew I was interested. I knew I loved languages. I love learning languages. And so I thought I would do that. I didn't know what I'd do with it. I just thought I'd take the classes and learn as many different languages as I could. That never ended up happening because I had placed out of my language requirement by those, AP tests, and I thought, I'll take a Shakespeare course, and I did, and I not only did I just, fall in love with the course, but my professor, he would just give these amazing lectures where he would say, he would begin by taking a poll, like asking the class what our opinion was. Do you think this or this about this Shakespeare play? And whatever we thought, whatever the majority thought, he would give a lecture on the opposite. He would say, okay, well, I'm going to argue the opposite. And then, just to show that there's all these different ways of looking at a text. And I thought, not only did I love the class, but I thought, I want this guy's job. I thought, this guy has the best job in the world. How do I get that job?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, then I found out, well, to get that job, you get a master's and PhD. Okay, what does that involve? Taking lots more classes like this. I'm like, sign me up. That was really, to me, it didn't feel like, oh, this is such a big deal. It was, I thought, and I also, it was a relief because I thought, finally, there's actually a job I could do, because if it weren't for that, I think my plan B was to, get a degree in education and, teach high school. But I knew, and I still believe, especially having 2 kids now who are in middle and high school, that's a much harder job. And, I'd be prepared to do, I think I'd probably be good at it. But they teach more classes than college students, than college teachers do. They're not expected to do, the level of research and writing. But their time is much less their own. They get summers off, which is great. And, college professors get that too. But so, yeah, I'm not as impressed with my PhD as sometimes other people are. I've seen my kids' teachers. I'm like, no, you impress me. What you do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all it took to do PhD was writing a dissertation. But before that, just taking more classes at an advanced level.
That's really cool. I think that's super awesome. And it's kind of like what you were saying, it's a relief to find something that you're going to do. And when it clicks, I'm 31 years old and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
That's okay. You don't have to grow up either.
True. As long as I got the baby face going, we're good to go. Yep. We don't have to worry. I really am also interested in what drew you to being in local politics.
Well, more than anything, it was really being a mom. I didn't quite realize at the time, but when my kids were born, and they're almost 3 years apart, I went from, I should say, I've always been interested in politics because I know it shapes the world around us. And, even, the smallest things from, going shopping and what gets taxed and what doesn't get taxed, you know, and
Yeah.
every day. It's hard for me to see, you know, areas in everyday life that don't are in some way affected by politics. Even just free time to just play. Your free time is dictated in some ways by laws about wages and sick leave and you know,
Yeah.
it's time you can have to just enjoy your life and not care about politics,
Right.
which is really important to me actually. But being a mom made me especially interested in politics at the local level, and seeing how, you know, the debt that we were piling up at the local level, the pollution that we're causing to our environment by the things that we allow to happen. I got really obsessed with following the fight to ban fracking in Denton. I was a supporter of that fight and a kind of passionate follower, but I didn't actually get involved until the state of Texas responded to our democratically decided fracking ban, Denton's democratically decided fracking ban, by banning bans. And yeah, and that was infuriating to me, because I had voted for that, and I voted for that not just for myself, but my community and my children and their generation and their future, because all the asthma, the earthquakes that come from fracking waste, and the contribution to global warming, really infuriating me. And here we came together as a town. We beat big oil and gas, and it was a bipartisan effort. It was not just, you know, I mean, I consider myself a progressive. It was not just progressives. It was also conservatives who were like, hey, you know, I want the right I have the right to breathe clean air.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want my town all mucked up by people who are going to come in, you know, mess up them, trying not to use cuss word, you know, mess up the ground and our air and take their money and leave.
Yeah.
You know, hell no. You know, so it was really not a left or a right thing. It was you know, we're defending our town.
Yeah.
And that was really moving. And it was a David and Goliath scenario, but we won. And then Austin, they banned bans and preempt us. But we had already gotten our fracking ban in. So I was really hopeful that, okay, now we're going to fight them. We're going to say, well, you know, you're coming in after the fact, right? We're kind of grandfathered in. So if you sue us, we can say, we got this in before you came out with your law. And we can fight you all the way to the Supreme Court. And then our city council folded without even putting up a fight. Everybody but one of them, and I say folded, obviously they didn't have a choice in what the state decided on state law, but there were lawsuits. There were 2 lawsuits against the city for the fracking ban under this new ban on bans, House Bill 40. And the city council was so afraid of being sued by these bullies that they caved and they sold out this vote of the people. And so I was outraged, and real kind of mama bear, you know, you don't do that. And that really got me in a fighting mood. And I was also inspired by one member of council, Keely Riggs, who voted no to repealing our fracking ban. She was the only one who voted no. But everybody else on council at the time repealed our fracking ban. And that took me literally just right from the sidelines right into the middle, being a full-time activist, and like diving into the water. You know, you're out and then suddenly you're in.
Yeah.
After that, there was no gradual, and I was like, okay, let's organize. And I wanted to get with people who were already organizing. And I found out that, well, anyway, I could go into the details, but it led to me kind of connecting to a bunch of people who I'm still friends with, and we work on all kinds of things together. and I've learned so much from them, including, Councilmember Briggs, who is very much the kind of representative of activists who was inside council. And that's kind of what I have become. And she just lost a bid for mayor, which was really sad to me. She's termed out in her position, which was a district position. I hope she'll run again for mayor. She was my choice for mayor. But anyway, then the city, not long afterwards, came out and said, hey, we've got a new plan called Renewable Denton, Renewable Energy. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. What's involved in this plan? And they sent out shiny postcards to everybody that had a picture of windmills and some cows on a pasture. I don't know where they got those cows from. Like, I know there are windmills in Denton, but I don't know where they got the cows from.
They hired cow actors.
Yeah, they hired cow actors. Yeah. I don't know, but anyway, they said, come to this thing where we're unveiling the plan. Well, come to this event, and it's all about, we're going to buy a bunch of renewable contracts, and to back it up, we're getting this great new natural gas plant. Yay!
Oh no!
And we're like, say what? Because of course it's fracked gas. It was rubbing 50 tons of salt in a really fresh new wound.
Yeah.
We are going to invest in fracking even more than we already are. And also, we knew we didn't need a gas plant to back up renewables because there's this thing called the grid, ERCOT, the statewide grid. And when you're hooked up to that, all the electrons that flow through that grid, whether they're produced by solar energy, wind energy, nuclear, natural gas, coal, there's hardly any coal anymore, it's dying. We're just selling our coal plant, which has taken ridiculously long to do. But anyway, and it was to the tune of $225 million. They took out a $260 million loan. And that was unprecedented expense in Denton history. And it still is, and we have a real lack of affordable housing. We're, over 50% tenants who struggle every month to pay their rent, especially like single parents or young families. And wages stay low. The state has prohibited cities from raising the minimum wage. So there's all this stuff, just basic stuff in life that's unsustainable.
Oh, wow.
Here we go, taking this money that ratepayers are going to pay for. And we don't need it because the grid will back us up. All we need is to have an energy source of some kind. But it wouldn't have to be a gas plant. We could invest in solar or wind. It wouldn't even have to be in Denton. We could put solar panels, on all the roofs of our city buildings and produce enough energy to count as an energy source for ERCOT to get us a special deals from ERCOT. So it was really a scam. And then anyway, that threw me into it, and that involved a lot of going to city council meetings to speak out against the gas plant. So I basically became like a city council groupie. And I wasn't the only one, there were probably like 20 of us, but I was probably one of the ones who was like every Tuesday, because that's when most of our meetings are. That's where I am. I cleared my whole Tuesday. And I spent a lot of time writing emails, doing social media, spreading the word. I spent a lot of time walking around and to people where they were going to build the gas plant, knocking on doors saying, did you know the city is planning on building a gas plant right next door to you? And people were outraged to find out. Including, I went and spoke to Aubrey City Council and Crum City Council because the gas plant, at first it was going to be, they were going to break it up into two and have one on one side of the town near Crum, another side near Aubrey. And basically right across the street from Crum and Aubrey. And I went to tell them and they were like, what? So we packed the halls, we protested, and council voted for the gas plant. I ran for council against an incumbent around that time and lost. But the reason why I ended up running was because I was like, if I was up there, I could vote no and stop that thing.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't thinking, I want to get involved in politics
Yeah.
and contribute to my, you know, help pay back to my community through, you know, public service. Like I didn't have somebody, I was like, I want to stop that gas plant. I know, I'll get on there. Then I can decide, you know, that was pretty much how I decided to do that. And I lost in the gas plant. It was a 4-3 vote. It was heartbreaking. So just barely won. But because of that gas plant, our ratepayers right now are struggling. You know, we didn't know then COVID was going to happen, but even it wasn't start with COVID that people were struggling to pay their utility bills. We have some really ludicrous utility billing policies that I believe, no, I don't believe, I know, it's just a fact. You can look at it. You know, poor people pay more for using less energy. And the big users like UNT, TWU, you know, and then like the Walmarts and, you know, Sam's Club, places like that, freezer warehouses that just have insane bills, monthly bills of $25,000 or more. It's hard to imagine just for your utility electric bill, just for the electricity. Yeah. And by the way, I teach at UNT, and I know they could lower it some because they jack up the when it's warm out. It's so cold that my students and I come with like sweaters, you know,
yeah,
so we have blankets. So you know, it doesn't need to be like that. But anyway, so yeah. And by going to all those city council meetings, I started hearing all other kinds of things that I didn't even know about that were going on. You know, and you'd see people like, you know, little old lady come before council and say, you're built, you know, you're allowing this building to be built at the corner of my street, but it's so dangerous at that corner already, and that will block all the visibility, and you haven't done a traffic study. You know, and I'd be like, oh no, like what's a traffic study? Yeah, they should do that. You know, and then they tell her, no, it's fine, it's fine. And she go, what are you talking about? You know, every time I go walk my dog, I'll, you know, almost get killed. And I'm watching this lady and I'm going, I don't know her or where she lives, but I know she's telling the truth, you know, and I know she's being patronized and talked down to, and it's making me really mad.
Yeah.
To hear her disrespected like that, because she knows her neighborhood. She's an expert.
Exactly. She's there.
Yeah. And then you see them, they praise the developer. Oh, I love your wonderful plan. It's so great. You know, but to her, just telling her you're wrong. So I didn't like that. And from that, I learned about all other kinds of things. Anyway, and now here I am. So, but it's funny because I ran on a kind of anti-gas, like, because stopping the gas plant was my big thing. Everybody assumed because I was concerned about the environment that I was a vegetarian or a vegan, you know, so everywhere I go, they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry we didn't. I'm like, no, I do eat meat, but you know, people thought, you know, I was the tree hugger.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
No, I am deeply concerned about my environment because I'm an air breather. And shouldn't we all? Because we live on the planet, but there are lots of things I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
In this most recent election, I was the, you know, police hater, you know, because I thought that like we've got a system that's unsustainable and needs reforming. And I'm like, oh, what about, did they forget I was a tree hugger? I guess I'm that too. You know, I don't know. So really any issue that affects the people of Denton, whether it's just one person, a family, a small business, a neighborhood, is an issue that's of concern to me. And I really just you know, I'm not a politician. I do consider myself an activist, and I'm pretty obsessed with democracy and trying to make it happen and make it work. And I just let the people be my guide. I do a lot of research, and I don't just accept, you know, whatever we get from information we get from staff. I'm always grateful for that information. But in addition to that, I talk to people.
Yeah.
Real people, hear their stories. I consider that data too, you know, and I do my research and talk to other council members in other Texas cities. I research policies from other cities. I read a lot. I I talk a lot. Some people don't like that.
And
But
you're a
enough like
mom,
it to,
so you
yeah,
got a lot going on. So
yeah.
that's so great to hear. It's such a breath of fresh air. I'm actually probably more on the conservative side when it comes to politics. It's just kind of I was raised on a farm in Washington State, of all places, and I didn't live in a city until I moved to Texas, and which is another backwards thing I feel. But uh, I'm now getting more on the side of I'm smack dab in the middle. They're both sides. They're I hate calling them sides because we're all Americans and we're all should be in this together. And I think the things that should separate us shouldn't be detrimental. And and I think that just comes with your area. But I have this thing going on that I'm trying to describe to friends of my generation that we can argue and yell and scream as much as we want. But if we're not going inside, if we're not the ones running, if we're not the ones going there and giving our voice or running in local, state, federal governments, then we're not going to get anywhere because this is going to sound kind of harebrained, but it's like the Boston Tea Party, no taxation without representation. And right now the American people aren't being represented.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm surprised that we're lasting as long as we are now, with all these protests going on, whether they're right or wrong in people's opinions. I don't care. People obviously are scared and they're obviously feeling a certain way. And instead of like addressing that, our guys are just like, they're wrong. They should all go to jail. They should, and I don't know. I'm on the sense of there's a lot more we need to be doing for each other than what's happening right now. I love that you're not a politician because I don't want somebody who wants to be a politician. The people that should represent yeah, the people that should represent us. I don't want somebody that wants to be president. I want somebody that is like, "Oh, I really don't want to do this, guys, but I'm here. This is my duty. This is what I have to do, and this is what I'm doing for you." And I'm super happy to have met you, and I'm really excited about this. If you were to teach another class, and this class happened to be how to run for local government,
Oh,
and it was something that was geared towards people maybe younger than me in
mhm.
school, how would you go? What would be your number one piece of advice?
That's a good question. And I actually end up, people ask me that a lot, not about how you would teach a class, but they say, what do I do? My advice is, pick an issue that really matters to you, a problem. Pick a problem you want to solve, that where you feel that there aren't enough people working on it, and research what the possibilities are. Find out, like think about what your goal is, and don't, it might be that what your goal is not possible. But before just saying, oh, that's impossible, find out.
Yeah.
It could be that it's possible. And you can find out by doing research to see, are there people doing this in other cities, in other states, even in other countries,
Yeah.
and if so, then what would have to change to make that happen here? And then does that change? Would that solve the problem you're trying to solve? Or maybe there are other ways to solve that problem, but really focus on problem solving. And only run for office if you really feel like the best way for me to help solve this problem is for me to run for office. See, it could be helping out someone else who's running for office. It could be starting a nonprofit. It could be that it's not a problem for government to solve.
Right.
Maybe it's something that you want to see if government wants to help out with, or apply for grants from government. Or maybe you don't want government. Maybe you decide, you know what? I want government about as far away from this as can possibly, right? So it's like, if you focus on solving problems, and take one problem at a time. Don't try to do everything at once. I'm not saying you'll reach your goal, you'll be successful. But you will, at the very least, you will plant seeds by raising awareness at the very least. But when people, and this fits with what you said, you know, I mean, when people just say, I want to run for office because I want to get involved. Gosh, there's a lot of other ways to get involved. I mean, and honestly, I mean, the people are grateful to have me up there representing them. But most of the battles I fight, I lose. And so I'm glad to be representing, and I know I'm planting seeds, and I know that I win on some things, and other things, you know, most of the things that I've won on involves compromising, which means watering down, you know, what I wanted, but at least you're getting closer to that goal. Now I have so many different goals. And I'm taking care of them on council, but I think if people think of it as politics, I want to get involved in politics, I feel like you're already kind of asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
You know, your goal should be, I want to solve the problem of too much fracking in Denton, or I want to solve the problem that rent is too high and wages are too low. You know, I want to solve the problem that, I'll give you an example of, this is a nonprofit that I went to help out with last week and to visit there for the first time. They're called Love Packs, and they're solving the problem of, you know, kids who go to school, public school kids who get breakfast and lunch at the schools. You know, what about over winter break and spring break and summer vacation? Well, actually, summer vacation is taken care of by the state, but for food, that is. But what about food over the other vacations? So it's a niche. It's a small niche, but it's a really important one. And that's what Love Packs does, is they put together, they get donations. It's like a food pantry that comes to you, but the point is only to give food to public school kids and their families to have over the vacations.
That's so
and they
cool.
did that. Yeah. And they, you know, it's if they had said, I want to run for office and have this be part of my platform, they might not have achieved that goal.
Right.
You know, but their goal was, we want to get food to people, and now they're doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my advice. Basically, another way of saying it is, be an activist with a specific goal in mind, and don't get too attached to the means to the end. You know, the way to fix it is through this. You know, have a number of possibilities. Try them out, find out what works and doesn't work, but don't get too committed to, it has to be done this way.
Yeah.
It's all about the outcome you want. Of course, oops, I lost you. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Your camera has gone off, but that is okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I pressed something on my phone.
You're fine.
Here we go. Wait, Zoom. Let me go back to Zoom. Zoom. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not good with technology.
It's okay. I'm not a professional podcaster. So
here we go. I'm back.
We're perfect. Yay, we're back. But I think that's so beautiful in this sense. That's such a good way. An example for us would be my wife and I. We don't have any kids of our own, and we kind of don't really plan to do that until, you know, we're super ready, and we're not there yet, but we do care about children. And a big thing that has been put on our hearts is the 800,000 kids a year and more that go missing and end up in, you know, child sex trafficking or something along those lines. So we've actually partnered with Thorn, which is Ashton Kutcher's organization that he made to battle that and removing child sex abuse material off the internet. And they are making strides, insane strides. And I'm a Twitch streamer on my off time, and I asked them if I could do a fundraiser. I didn't, you know, go for government or anything, but I was like, I'm gonna email them, see what they say. They said it's cool. I'm a small streamer, so I set a small goal of like $500, and if we hit it, I'll do a 24-hour stream for it. I thought I was going to get $100. We ended up destroying that goal in like 4 hours, And it was so cool. And then that got Thorn involved in wanting to do their own Twitch so they can do fundraisers. And they invited me and my wife to be involved in it. And I got to open for Ashton, which was like insane, and
Wow.
it was so cool. And they had a goal that I thought was insane. It was $250,000 and they smashed it. I was like, wow, that is so cool. And my whole reason I'm bringing that up is I thought that we had to go government. I thought we had to get the government involved in this kind of a thing. But if they're not going to move, we got to move. We got to do it.
Exactly. Yep. That is such an important lesson for everything, because you were focused on the goal.
Yeah.
And if you decide it has to come from this person, and then you sit around twiddling your thumbs, and I've seen, a lot of times also when you do get something from government, it comes with all this bureaucracy and paperwork and of course, if you're a nonprofit, there are things you have to do for a good reason to be transparent, so
Right.
you're not just like so people know you're not or whatever, that is going where you say it's going. But yeah, there's all this paperwork and it takes extra time. And that's my perpetual frustration. It's so funny being in government. I'm like, gosh, if I was out there, I could get this so done easier. But there are some things that only government can do.
Right.
Deciding on like voting on the budget, but then again, if democracy is working right, we're deciding on it from listening to you,
right,
the people who elected us, because we're your servants. But yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you. That also brings me to my next question / point is I've wanted to be involved in some kind of government in the sense of I don't feel like we're being represented as people anymore. And I feel like the only representation we have is what we should buy next or what we should be consuming and what we should be paying. And instead of our livelihoods, it's just about how much money is involved. But I know that kind of a platform isn't going to get anywhere because it's kind of it kind of goes over the head of the majority of people because a lot of people don't look that deep into it. But I think that instead of me going into a political path, it would be best to scream support the people you want. Don't support a party. Don't support an idea or ideal. Support who you align with. And I try to preach this to people and they're like, no, because if you vote for them, it's a vote for the other guy. And I get it. I understand. But the more people we have that vote who they actually want, and if we continue that trend, we will finally get to a point that person, that people who actually want to vote for is now representing us. I don't know the logistics of how voting works in local government. I don't know if you run party based or if it's mostly independent. But how does that go? What kind of advice would you give someone who's wanting to vote and they want to throw their vote for an independent, but there's like a Republican or a Democrat and the other people are arguing, well, if you vote for the independents, vote for the other guy, kind of a deal.
Well, so so what city are you in?
I'm in the Colony, right down the road.
Okay, you're in the Colony. So, in City of Denton, city council elections are nonpartisan,
Great.
Which means you don't run on a party ticket. I can't imagine myself ever. Now, I say this, I'm not promising. It's just saying I can't imagine myself ever, running on a party ticket for a number of reasons. Because I believe it's people vote based on party. And I'll admit I've even done it when I don't know who the people are.
Right.
Well, I'll pick the person, with the parties that are, at least their ideals are the closest to my values. That tells you so little. So I really love, there's so much that I hate about local politics. It is very partisan and there's a lot of partisanship that comes into it, But the fact that we don't run on a party ticket, the fact that I don't need to check with any party, and I don't think in my head, even though, if you look at my record of voting in primaries, which is public, I have voted only in Democratic primaries. When I vote and that's because when you vote in a primary, you have to decide which primary you're voting in.
Right.
But that's for state, regional and federal positions.
Yeah.
But I much prefer. I think the two-party system is so limited. There's way too much money going into it. You get all these. It's just so corporate.
Yeah.
You've got big corporate donors who donate to both parties because they're like,
they're hedging their bets.
Whoever it is, whoever it is, I want them to be my puppet.
Yeah.
So anyway. Now I forgot what the question was.
Well, just like, are you under the guise of, if you vote for like the independent, are you wasting your vote?
Oh, I see. Like I would never tell that to anyone. Like, to me, that is so personal. Like everybody has the right to vote their heart.
Yes.
To vote for somebody who, even if I know this person's going to lose. I might be taking away votes from the lesser of if there's say 3 in a race, like it's 2 evils, but this person, I want to support them with my vote. I personally, like, I would never tell you, oh, that's really stupid, don't do that. I might say, I'm not doing that. I really like that person, the independent person, but I'm going to vote for one of these 2 people because this is 2-party system and, realistically, blah, blah, blah. I think it's really great when people vote their heart. And sometimes I do that. Actually, I shouldn't say sometimes I do that. By the way, in local government, every time I vote my heart, every time.
Good.
But I mean, when voting for people when voting as a private citizen,
right,
on the ballot, and I'm looking at the choices, anyway, so. Yeah, I would no sooner tell anyone that than I would say, I don't think your religion is all that good. You should try my religion.
Right. Exactly.
Like, that's your heart.
Yeah.
It's so personal how you vote. That's all. That's my answer to that.
That's so refreshing as well. I am so proud to have a fellow Texan be a representative of the actual people. I do plan to spread my wings and talk to some other local government here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You definitely caught my eye with the first line, I think, was the 18th century PhD in the literature. And I was like, somebody who isn't really, in the political world is in the political world. That's the perfect person to talk to as like the intro. Awesome. I really appreciate you coming out here. I want to be respectful of your time because I feel like we could be talking for hours about this stuff. I'm going to send you on your phone, you can go ahead and remove your video if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it for you. I started this podcast under the guise that it was going to be about Dungeons and Dragons because I'm a big nerd and that's something I love and I'm passionate about, but I also am interested.
I love it too, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Ooh. And I decided to keep this one aspect of it. We're going to have a roll-off. And it's going to be an insane roll-off because what happened is the United States government has an issue and one of us is going to be called to be a consultant for whatever issue this is. We'll say it's the end of the world. Aliens just came and they wanted to talk to somebody and they're going to choose one of us. And so you're the guest. So I'm going to roll first. I want to also preface that I've lost every single roll on this show. So prepare to have to talk to aliens. So for you, we are going to do it. Roll a 20. Oh, you got a 5. Okay.
5.
So I might have to talk to aliens. Let's see. 16. Okay. I have to talk to aliens. But I'm still going to call you for the help. I really appreciate you coming out. If you'd like, this is your red carpet. This is your moment to tell people how they can read about you, maybe pick up your book, where they can find your work, anything along those lines. Let us know.
Well, you know what? I will tell people, if you want, let's see, you can look up a University of Washington Press and ask them for a copy of my book that used to be available on Amazon. I don't know if it still is, but they have it at academic libraries. More than anything else right now, though, I really just tell people, because of everything that's going on in the world now, that's so much more important than my book and my research. Just tell people to be safe, protect yourself and others and your family, and just have a happy holidays, and focus on what your goals are, and when it does come to politics, remember that the people who are up there, they're your servants. I'm a servant. They're your servant. You're the boss. Let them know who's boss. Let us know who's boss. We have power, but if democracy works right, it's power for us to be a mouthpiece for you. You're the ones who are really supposed to have the power. I know it's not really working that way, but that's wrong. We need to change that. So by we, I mean the people. I should say you, now that I'm on the other side. But anyway, that would be my, stay safe, and never forget that the people up there, whether you voted for them or not, even if you didn't vote, they're your servant. Make them work for you. Demand things of them. So
that's awesome.
Have happy holidays.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and you can always catch us live once in a while on Twitch on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Sometimes we record the podcast live. You can shout at us on Twitter if we got something wrong at BTBehind. And if you or someone you know has a really interesting story, or you guys are just involved in one of the most interesting topics, or you're a fellow nerd like myself, go ahead and email me at btbehind@gmail.com. And thanks again, guys, for listening, and have a happy holidays.